What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into episode 190 here in season 7 of the Country Roads Webcast. And it's here. It's just about game time. We're gearing up for the start of the 2024 season with our first preview and predictions episode of the season, getting set to take on the Penn State Nittany Lions to open the 2024 season as West Virginia welcomes them into Morgantown for the season opener, which will also be the Stripe the Stadium game. And here to help me preview it, as always, my two great co-hosts. We've got Bradley.
What up, what up, what up?
And Steven.
What's going on, everybody?
All right, gentlemen. So we'll get into it, throughout this episode. As always, just a refresher for you guys viewing or listening to this episode. Our format's always we preview the matchups, then we'll go to our key to victory and our score predictions, and we'll close things out by taking a look around the Big 12 and making our picks for the games going on throughout the rest of the conference as well. But before we get into that and get into all the fun stuff talking about the matchups, let's just start it off with some opening thoughts about a very highly anticipated season opening game and what is a very highly anticipated season for West Virginia, the most anticipated in quite some time, I'd say, and maybe one of the biggest home openers and biggest season openers the Mountaineers have had in a very long time as well. In addition to that, Penn State ranked number 8 in the country coming into this one. Steven, how are you feeling just heading into this 2024 season and getting ready for this game against the Nittany Lions?
Initially in our, season prediction roundtable, I know I picked us to, lose this game, but after studying, a lot of their preview shows and learning a lot about their teams and a little bit more about the 2024 Nittany Lions rather than the 2023 Nittany Lions, I've started to feel a little bit more confident for WVU in a lot of areas. I know that they've got a lot to be excited about. Their fan base isn't necessarily, downtrodden about them. That's not what I'm saying, but I don't know, just a lot to be excited about in terms of just this matchup specifically. A lot overall for WVU, but I'm really trying to calm myself down where we're getting pretty close to kickoff here.
Yeah, it's hard to do right now. I mean, by the time you guys are watching or listening to this, will be a week away or maybe even less by that time that you get a chance to tune into this episode. So it's almost here, and the anticipation for this season has just continued to build and build throughout. And now we've almost made it, Brad, and we're getting ready to take on this top 10 Penn State club. What are kind of your opening thoughts, looking forward to this matchup and the start of this season?
Yeah, it's a fickle one. It's definitely interesting because it's exciting because it's a rivalry that we haven't had in quite some time. If you want to call it a rivalry, very one-sided.
Right.
But it's definitely going to be one of the more electric games that I've been to in my time as a Mountaineer fan. So I'm excited to see what it's going to look like with the new light. New lights. I'm just kidding. It's going to be 12 o'clock in the day. But with Big Fox, big noon kickoff going to be there and everything. So it's going to be an intense, crazy game. And, we got a chance to do something special. But I think that's kind of where I line up on it right now. Beating Penn State would be doing something special at this point. We have a lot of faith in Neil Brown and the team. Let's say, but at the same time, consistency is key, and so you got to prove that you can do it again. And so that's really and I think that even if you lose this game, it might not tell you if you have that. You know what I mean? So this game can kind of be tricky. You come out and you just stumble a little bit against Penn State. You can't lose your confidence. Maybe you're a lot better than that. But so I think it's a crazy one. First game of the year. You really don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah. It's hard to tell. It really is. I mean, especially when you got a team coming in as talented as Penn State, as highly regarded as they are nationally. And also, look at it from the other side of the coin, because one thing that I think we've all picked up on from, the press conferences throughout the spring and into fall camp from the coaches and the players as well is they're still yet again feeling slighted. They may not have been picked last in the Big 12 conference, but they still don't think that they're getting the respect that they deserve coming off the year that they did last year, returning the players that they did. Neil Brown just, a couple days before us recording this, did an interview with Marty and McGee where he was talking about an ESPN top 100 players list that didn't have Garrett Green nor Wyatt Milam on it. And he was wondering how the ESPN guy still had a job making that list and not including those two guys on it. So there's still plenty of ways this team feels slighted. So I think that what I'm expecting and hoping to see is a West Virginia team that comes out hungry and really just going to give this thing their best shot because they're ready to, prove the naysayers wrong. They still have that chip on their shoulder that they had last year, and I think that that's a good thing. I love the mentality of this team and just the way that they seem, ready to not only start this season but ready to take on this challenge against a top 10 ranked team coming into Morgantown head on. And I think that they're going to be ready to go when it comes August 31st.
Yeah, I could agree more. Yeah, the more you listen to each of the player interviews and not just I think I was ready to run through a brick wall whenever I listened to that Neil Brown interview the other day.
Hey.
But I tell you what, just listening to the confidence around the program, and it just seems like everybody that is around the program, media wise, player wise, coach wise, everybody, just seems to be like bought in. You know what I mean? Early on, I even made comments. Not that Tony's ever been negative in any way towards him, but like Tony Caridi was kind of skeptical about our offensive line being as good as it was last year, and how he couldn't possibly see how they could be that good and live up to that. And now you listen to him talking, him and those guys, and they all seem just as confident as the players because they've been to practice and seen how Greg Hunter and them get to watch practice every single day, and they all seem just as confident as we are. But I don't know. I've pointed out all the factors that make me so confident in this season, and it's just if history's proven me anything, it's all of these factors always equal success for WVU. So I am extremely excited.
Yeah, well, it's just like we've been bit on coach speak before with this staff. It just happens to happen, but I think that we all know that we were in that point that if everything got clicking, then like you would know it could be something special. And so it's like I feel like we're really at that point where is it going to pay off like what we could see this whole time? Like Neil Brown's got a team that's been his for a couple of years now. His first recruit ever to West Virginia stepping up to the plate against a rival that we've hardly beaten in our whole entire rivalry, and really pull this thing around. And like that would be a phenomenal feat. And so it's just like it's hard to hold them up to that standard of like if you don't do this, you're upset about it. But like if you do it, then man, are you setting a precedence for a crazy season?
Yeah, and on a larger scale, I didn't think about this until I watched, Greg McElroy and his take on the game. This is potentially a larger game for the Big 12 conference as a whole. Playing
Great
in
point.
one of the better teams in the Big 10 conference and having it on big noon kickoff. West Virginia has a chance to really not only set themselves up well for the rest of the season, but really the conference, for the big for the college football playoff rather.
Mm.
So a lot of implications.
It is a lot of implications. And, like you said, big for the Big 12. And then you can go out and, put the nation on notice really right from the jump that, okay, maybe we underrated this West Virginia team heading into this season. Like we all feel like the national media kind of is. And, I think another good point there, Brad, you mentioned this rivalry's been one-sided. West Virginia's only won a couple times in the past, 40, 50 years. And I think that when I go back and think about that, I think about something that, when we played Pitt, last year, and Neil Brown really hammered home that it had been since 2011 that the West Virginia fan base had a chance to, see a victory over the Pitt Panthers, and he kept hammering that home throughout the week. I'm sure that leading up to this game, once they get into this Penn State prep this week, that he's going to be hammering home that it's been since 1988 that West Virginia has beaten a Penn State team, and that's going to be something that he uses to motivate this team and get them ready and just let them know how important this game is, not only to them, the Big 12, as Stephen mentioned, but really to the state as a whole in West Virginia, and could give them some bragging rights and allow them to see something that some of us have never seen in our lifetimes, myself included. I've never had the privilege of seeing West Virginia beat Penn State since I've been alive. So this would be just a monumental win in a lot of different aspects, and it's just super exciting to have a season opener like this. Like I said, I can't think of the last time we've had a season opener like this at home in Morgantown. I can't wait to see what that environment's like up in Morgantown on the 31st, because I think it's just going to be outstanding.
Yeah, I cannot wait.
Yeah, like I said, it's
kinda,
gonna be electric.
you're right.
Electric.
It's kind of surreal because, normally opening the schedule, you're playing against the FCS piece of your schedule, which West Virginia is now put into the second week. But normally whenever we're playing these top teams, we're either in a neutral site or we're on the road. We finally get one of these at home. So
it's one of the first home openers, even generally, like, and so,
in
like,
a while.
5 years or something like that. 4 years, 5 years.
It's been a while. It's been a while. Yeah, a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think I heard somebody say it's been since I want to say it was like '98 when they played Ohio State at home to open the season, and that's probably the last time that anything came close to this. So you're looking at nearly close to 30 years. So it's
Yeah.
really a special thing that hasn't happened in a long time. Welcoming in a top 10 team to begin the season as your home opener and as your season opener. So a lot of things at stake here. That's just kind of what we wanted to open it up with, just kind of our initial thoughts about it. You guys got anything else before we dive into some matchups here?
Let's get
Nope.
into it.
Nope.
All
I'm
right.
ready to dive into it.
All right, let's do it. So we're going to get ready to preview the matchups on both sides of the football here. But before we do, I want to tell you guys about something that would be a great matchup for you in your own life. And that's something that's been awesome for me ever since I've been using it. And that is Magic Mind, the mental performance shot. Can't recommend this enough, guys. Editing this show, editing the podcast, editing the YouTube videos. Sometimes it can be, a little bit tedious. You get a little bit frustrated. You start to lose your concentration. But ever since I've been taking Magic Mind, that's not the case. Helps keep me more focused, less anxious, better mental clarity. It's such a great product, tested by doctors. It's got the highest grade matcha possible inside of it. So many good health benefits for you. It doesn't have to replace your coffee. You guys know I love my coffee, so I can still have my coffee. And not only does it not replace it, it continues to boost that caffeine throughout the day. So you don't have that crash that you have when you're using other energy products or drinking only coffee. It has that time released caffeine that will continue to help you throughout the day. So can't recommend Magic Mind enough, guys. And if you want to get matched up with it, we have a special code here on the Country Roads webcast that you can use to get 48% off your first subscription or 20% off a one-time purchase. If you just want to give it a try, you can head over to magicmind.com/countrylt and use our special code countrylt20 at checkout for that discount. And I guarantee you're going to love Magic Mind. It'll be a great matchup for you, just like we're hoping that this Penn State matchup goes on to be a good one and a positive one for West Virginia. With that being said, guys, let's dive in here. Let's start with the Penn State offense versus the West Virginia defense and kick things off on that side. When Penn State has the ball, some things to look out for here. Obviously, new offensive coordinator taking over at Penn State, Andy Kotelnicki coming over from Kansas, who, of course, top 20 in total offense in 2023. Last year at Kansas, he really built that thing up. Some of their standout players, of course, Drew Allar at quarterback returns. They return running backs Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. They are replacing some receivers. Harrison Wallace is expected to be wide receiver one for them, but they've also added Julian Fleming, a former five-star recruit that transfers in from Ohio State. They still have Caden Saunders and Amari Evans as well. And you can't forget about the tight end Tyler Warren, who was a big threat for them last season and will be one of the go-to targets for Drew Allar in the passing game. Along the offensive line, they are replacing at least three starters after a couple of those guys went pro last year. So not a ton of pieces back along the offensive line. Maybe that's, one con that West Virginia can look to attack there when they're going after this Penn State club. Maybe with the pass rush, we know West Virginia led the Big 12 in sacks and tackles for loss last year. So maybe that's something that they can pinpoint here in this matchup. But when you guys are looking at this matchup, how are you feeling about the Penn State offense going up against a revamped West Virginia defense? What are your thoughts here on this matchup, Brad?
Yeah, when Penn State has the ball, dude, two dominant running backs. Drew Eiler's looking great. I think that they're going to be, even with the new coordinator, I think that they're going to be a bit more cohesive this year. They've kind of just had time to gel. And so, I expect them to be functional. I don't expect our defense to be able to walk in and stop them all day long. So when I'm looking at this matchup, man, I'm looking at turnovers. I think that our defense, this is going to be one of those games where it's high energy. You got to be playing loose. Hope that your guys are in a position to really just kind of when there is a mistake made, you got to jump on it, man. You got to make a big play. We're going to get tested early on the run game. As I said, those linebackers, we're going to see Trotter early, Lathan early, and we're going to see if they're back and ready to rumble off the jump. When it comes to the linemen, I think our D line's solid. I think that they're going to hold their own. I think they're going to keep their assignments straight. You got some leadership there, and Sean Martin that's going to hold them down. So I think it's really going to come down to early in the game. Can the linebackers early get involved early and stop the run and kind of stall out that offense? And then when they kind of like forced to throw the ball, can our defense make some turnovers and saying really just kind of steal some possessions because that's how you're going to win this game.
Yeah, that's a great point because that's one thing, Drew Aller, he did have some down spots last year, but one thing he did for the majority of the year was take care of the football. So, maybe on the road you can force him into some mistakes and cause him to, throw some interceptions, or maybe you can get a strip there, get a fumble, because I think turnovers will definitely play a big part in this football game. Whoever wins this turnover battle will probably have a great chance at this one. Last year, West Virginia had some chances at some interceptions on Aller and couldn't come down with them. This year, they're going to have to capitalize on those opportunities because when you look at the matchup last year, I think West Virginia did a pretty good job, stopping both Singleton and Allen and, kind of calming down Penn State's rushing attack. That was their focus, to kind of make Drew Aller beat them. Unfortunately, he did end up beating us. He had a great game in that one, got to give it to him. So hopefully this year, West Virginia is better prepared that if they stop their run and try and force Drew Aller to beat them, they have better players in the secondary, I think, than they had initially, and they know more of what they had than they did going into that first game against Penn State last year. West Virginia will be better prepared defensively to face this Penn State offense, especially on the passing side of things, I do believe. But Stephen, what about you? How are you feeling about this matchup, West Virginia's defense going up against this Nittany Lions offense to start the season here?
It's kind of interesting to me because if you look at this Nittany Lion offense, it's fairly similar to West Virginia's offense. You got a quarterback that you're really excited about. You got two really good running backs that you're really excited about. You have to replace a receiver, but you have other receivers coming in to fill that void, not just one but multiple that can make plays. You got a tight end who's really prolific that can make plays for you. All things that you could say for both offenses. But really where the differentiating factor for me is up front on the offensive line. You've got similarities up there as well. West Virginia has to replace Zach Frazier and Doug Nestor. They have to replace three key starters. But really West Virginia doesn't get younger up front. They just get, they feel that with more experience. You've got guys shifted around, but you've got experience along the entire offensive line front for West Virginia, whereas you don't have that for Penn State. So I really think that that'll be a positive for West Virginia's defensive line. I know that I've pointed to that as something that we really lack depth in. That's really the only thing we lack depth in is up front of the defensive line. But I'm really excited to see what they do with some of these guys switching around positions. Most notably with the spear position, they love bringing that spear position down. And adding an extra rusher. You think about what the potential that Trey Lathan adds in just being right there at the middle linebacker position. So I think they're going to have a tough time running the ball against us, which is going to force them to try to open the passing game up. I don't know how that offensive line for them is going to respond to that. And I think West Virginia could get potentially a couple interceptions in this game. I'm like you guys. I really think whoever wins the turnover battle is likely to win this football game. But I really think it starts up front, and I'm not confident that Penn State's going to be able to have it all figured out with a young offensive line like that in game one, which is totally opposite of what I said in the season prediction roundtable. But hey, that's why we study.
Hey, that's why I said once we get into these preview episodes, we get to dive in a little bit more, take some notes, and who knows, opinions always change, when it comes to the preview episodes versus how it was in the season prediction roundtable, especially once we get into the season and there's a lot of other determining factors that go into it as the season goes along. But I think that's a great point about the young Penn State offensive line because especially, they're maybe starting a freshman at the right tackle spot, it sounds like, although, obviously, Penn State, they get high ranking recruits, so it's going to be, a solid recruit coming in there, or, I believe it's going to be a redshirt freshman, so he's been in the program for a little bit. But nonetheless, one thing West Virginia has tried to do is revamp their pass rush this offseason with the addition of Victor Cabral. They're coaching the Spurs, formerly the Bandit positions. I think that they're going to be successful. We've talked a lot about the defensive line and how successful they were in previous seasons. You return most of those guys. So I think definitely, getting after the quarterback could be a plus for West Virginia in this game. And, I had heard some talk about Drew Aller struggling on the road last season, so I wanted to dive into his numbers a little bit And look at that. And all three of Penn State's losses, those were to Michigan, to Ohio State, and then in the bowl game to Ole Miss. He was held below 50% completion percentage. But I really wanted to break down his home games versus his performance in road and neutral site games. So averaged out his completion percentage in his home games, he was completing nearly 61% of his passes. But when he played on the road or at neutral sites last year, that dropped all the way down to 52% on average. So seems like he does struggle on the road a little bit, which could be a plus in West Virginia's corner. And when I was looking at it, I wanted to see what their first road game was last season, as this, of course, will be their first road game here in 2024. And in their first road game of the 2023 season, Drew Aller only completed 48% of his passes against Illinois. So that's just something to keep in mind when it comes to West Virginia. If they can slow down Penn State's run game, which they had success doing last season, and force Drew Aller to throw the football, I don't think he's going to have the same success that he had last year, playing at home in front of Penn State's crowd when you've got this rowdy environment that's going to be there in Morgantown. That could be something to keep an eye on and could result in those turnovers you guys are talking about, maybe if they can get Drew Aller rattled a little bit, because he's still a young guy, still capable of making mistakes. So it could be something that's positive for West Virginia.
Yeah, I think the crowd is going to play a huge factor in this game.
Yeah, especially with new offensive coordinators, like that's going to make a big change in it. Headsets, like there's a lot of newness there. And so, like, at least you have the comfortability of we've been home, like we're at home. We've used the headsets before. Like we've got returning staff. Like we're more prepared.
Which I think West Virginia was good getting ahead of the curve on that, because we used it even a couple springs ago. We used it, and then we got to try it out in the bowl game. So maybe we'll be more adverse at using it than Penn State will, because it's probably going to be one of their first times using it. Of course, I'm sure they're using it through fall camp, but when you get into a game setting, especially using it for the first time on the road, that could make a difference.
Very big difference too. You're in the middle of a game and they leave that mic on. Like, if you're a quarterback, you might not pay attention to it, but you might. Like, it could play.
Yeah, because I think it goes into up until pretty late into the play clock. They can send those calls in, and of course it'll be the offense and defense both will have them. So it's going to be an interesting addition. And then while we're talking about that, there are multiple new additions to college football this season. Of course, we're talking about the in-helmet communication. There's going to be tablets on the sidelines, and also can't forget 2-minute warning coming to college football this year. In the second and fourth quarters, we'll have that added as well. So some changes that both teams are going to have to get used to in this first game.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the 2-minute warning. I don't know, not for no specific reason at all. I've never been a fan of it.
I think it's an extra advantage too. Like, in the game situations and stuff, it's like you got 4 timeouts instead of 3 now almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Never been a fan.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out here in the college game. But anything else on the Penn State offense versus the West Virginia defense before we flip it over and talk about the Mountaineer offense?
Nah.
Nope.
Just flip it over.
Yep, I'm just excited to see how our defensive line does.
I am too. I'm hoping that they're ready to play, and I think that last thing I'll just say in regards to that is I think this defense is going to really surprise some people. People forget back in 2020, West Virginia had the number 1 pass defense in the country that year, and I think that this defense is fully capable of being just as good as that defense, if not better, because I think they have even more depth than the defense had that season. So I'm excited to see how it shakes up. But that's kind of our thoughts on the matchup between the West Virginia defense and the Penn State offense. So having said that, gentlemen, let's flip it over a little bit and talk about a unit that has proven itself throughout last season, those being, both the West Virginia offense and really the Penn State defense as well, for that matter. We're talking about a defense at Penn State that was, top 5 statistically in a lot of categories last year nationally, including, one of the nation's top rush defenses. So, they're proven. And of course, West Virginia in the back half of last season proved how explosive they could be once they got, kind of all their pieces healthy and everyone playing together, with Garrett Green being unleashed, with Jaheim White, with the young receivers really growing up in front of our eyes. West Virginia's offense really started to click on all cylinders by the time the 2023 season ended, and they returned, most of those pieces, save for, Zach Frazier. So really both of these units, I think, come into this game confident about the way that they can perform in this game, both the Mountaineer offense and the Penn State defense. And speaking of that Penn State defense, they have a new coordinator there as well. That's one thing about this Penn State club. They returned James Franklin as head coach, but new coordinators on offense, defense, and special teams. Their new defensive coordinator is Tom Allen, who has previously been the head coach at Indiana from 2017 to through 2023. They are switching their scheme up a little bit to more of a 4-2-5 style. Their top defensive player will absolutely be none other than Abdul Carter. He was a monster coming off as an outside linebacker last year. This year, he's transitioning to defensive end. So that's something to keep an eye on this game. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Him and Wyatt Milam probably going head to head. And also, will there be an adjustment period for him moving down to the defensive line? I'm not sure, but he's definitely going to be an explosive player for them throughout the season. And then, just standout player at each level for them. There's a lot of them I could name, but I want to talk about Abdul Carter on the defensive line. And then linebacker, they do return Kobe King, who was very good there playing the Mike position. And then in the back half of the defense, I think safety Kevin Winston really is the standout as he led the team in tackles in 2023. Stephen, when you look at this matchup, Penn State is believed to have a top defense in the country yet again, much like they did last season. But there are some changes. They're replacing some pieces. Chop Robertson's gone. Isaac's gone off the defensive line. They're moving Abdul Carter in there to try and fill that void. They do still have Dennis Sutton there. They have pieces on the back end as well. So it's believed to be a strong Penn State defense, but we know that West Virginia has a really good offense that, is probably being underrated heading into this season. But how are you feeling about how these two units match up in this football game?
Well, this is really what's going to be the fun matchup to watch for me is our offenses versus their defense. And that was one thing I was going to touch on. They moved Abdul Carter down to that defensive end position to fill the void of Chop Robinson, leaving for the NFL. He was actually recruited to play that defensive end position, so I don't think that's going to be too much of a transition for him or that defense. But really looking at it, and this isn't really disrespecting anybody in the Big Ten, but looking at their schedule, those numbers from their rushing defense from last year was in some ways inflated. Because they didn't really play a large part on their schedule. Even looking at West Virginia, I wouldn't say that West Virginia was a very good rushing team in that first game. You know what I mean? Like we couldn't really get even with us making it as close of a game for a large majority of that game as we did. We didn't really run the ball that great on them. And the two teams that really were good at running the ball against them last year was Ohio State with Travion Henderson, and then obviously Michigan with the two running backs that they had. I really think that good running teams can make this defense struggle, even with them being as ranked as highly as they are in rushing defensive numbers. So with West Virginia, having two really prolific running backs, and then you add Garrett Green into that mix, which I hope that he's not going to have to rush, scramble the ball that much. So you hope it's just left up to CJ and Jaheim. I really think that that's what excites me looking at these two facing off is how West Virginia can potentially really kind of run the ball down their throats.
It's going to be a battle of wills there. Who wants it more? Essentially, Penn State's rushing defense has been vaunted, and West Virginia's rushing offense coming off a year in which they led all of Power Conference football. And I think that that's one thing that a lot of the national media and maybe even some around the Penn State camp aren't really realizing is that when West Virginia played Penn State last year, yeah, West Virginia ran for nearly 150 yards on them, but they didn't even have, Jaheim White wasn't playing yet. Garrett Green, they hadn't really fully unleashed him as far as a runner. They were kind of playing things close to the vest in that game and weren't really trying to, put things in harm's way. They were just trying to, play safe initially. I think now this team kind of knows what they have. This coaching staff knows what they have, and they're going to be ready to unleash everything, fire every bullet out of the gun in this game, not leave anything left in the chamber. And so that's something that wasn't happening last year that's, they're going to have to take into account this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But I think that that's a good point that despite the fact that this, Penn State rush defense was very good last year, they were vulnerable. Specifically, if you look at that game against Michigan last year, they really exposed them. And, Michigan, what did they have last year? Two really good running backs. What does West Virginia have? Two really good running backs.
Really good running backs.
Yeah, something to watch there for sure. But Brad, what about you? How are you feeling about West Virginia's offense? Do you think they'll be able to conquer this, strong Penn State defense? How are you feeling about this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, like you guys said, when it comes to running the ball, that's where, you look at the Michigan game, they got crushed to the running. Two strong running backs. I would say we have three strong running backs. Four if you count Rodney Gallagher coming out of freaking nowhere to catch a little, sweep. But they've got the potential to come out and really swing for home and be dominant. I mean, but what I worry about is you can't come out and sputter. It can't come out and just and not have your things together. Our offense needs to come ready, snap one, and punch them in the mouth, and just like set the standard from play one. Because I think that's the only way you got a chance is if you just come out right from the beginning and say, "Hey, we're a well-oiled machine. Like you put us on the field and we're ready to go." You know what I mean? And so I think that's got to be what happens. And so you can't have Wyatt Milam miss a block on the outside and Garrett Green get crushed in the first possession and go 3-and-out and punt the ball. And then put your defense in an even worse position and give Penn State a chance to get oiled up. You gotta grab it from the beginning. As soon as you get it, you gotta score.
Great point. Yeah, you want to get off to a fast start in this game because that's what's really going to, make a difference as well. We talk about the crowd. Imagine, if you get out to a quick start in this game, that crowd's going to be in it from beginning to the end, and that's what you want. You want this crowd to continue to be, giving Penn State trouble. I know they're used to playing in front of 100,000, but 60,000 in Morgantown it's different. It gets rowdy in there, especially for big games like this one. And if you come out, with a fast start, it's only going to have that crowd in it from the very beginning. So yeah, I'm super excited about that possibility of West Virginia, jumping out early and having that crowd lively from beginning to end. I think that's a good point there, Brad, indeed. And West Virginia's rushing game is going to be a great way for them to be able to do that. You come out, you break off a long, methodical drive, you run the football, 8 times on that drive. You maybe have a 12-play drive, take 5-6 minutes off the clock. Penn State's defense is tired. They're not knowing what hit them. They weren't expecting West Virginia to come out and punch them in the mouth like that. That's something that could really make a difference in the game for sure.
Yeah, and you really hope that West Virginia can, mimic what they did, eventually in the run game last year. They would tell teams that they were going to run it pretty much, and then and still have success running the football. And that's really what I'm kind of hoping they kind of keep going without any kind of hiccups. I've got high hopes for our offensive line. I really, truly do. I don't think that there's going to be. I mean, you're going to miss Zach Frazier and Doug Nestor. You're just going to. But with the experience that we have up there with Wyatt Milam, containing an edge, and then Brandon Yates isn't new to the position. So I really think as strong as their defensive line is, we will have success.
A ton of experience on that offensive line, and I think that they're going to be, just probably on par with what they were last year and be able to do a lot of the same things, especially when it comes to the run game. But something that I've really heard in the fall camp that's got me even, more excited for this matchup because this probably wasn't the case last year throughout the majority of the year, and certainly wasn't the case when we played Penn State. We didn't really have the receivers that we ended up having later in the year. We still had Cortez Braham, Jeremiah Aaron, guys like that in our lineup there at receiver. Those guys weren't even playing past, the first month or so of the season. So really Penn State, not only have they not seen Jaheim White, a fully unleashed Garrett Green, they don't know really a ton about Hudson Clement, Traylon Ray. They saw Preston Fox a little bit, but of course, Jaden Bray, all the new pieces that we have in the wide receiver core. And one thing that you heard the coaching staff say, you heard multiple coaches say this in recent press conferences is, last year teams would try and stop West Virginia. They would load the box. They would play press man coverage on the wide receivers and go, zero blitz, cover zero on the back end. And, sometimes that would slow West Virginia down. And now they said that's something they've worked on. And they said, hey, if you want to, press your corners, play, cover zero against us, come on and do it. We're ready for it. So, if Penn State tries that, I think West Virginia is going to have something prepared for that. And we may see a long bomb over the top off some play action or something as well. And that wouldn't be a bad thing to see either. Starting off this game, come out, heavy personnel. Penn State's like, oh, here they come. They're going to come right at us, run right at us. And we hit them with the play action over the top, and they're not even ready for it. That's something I'd love to see as well. That would get the crowd just as hyped. So, either way you spin it, I think West Virginia's offense is going to have the propensity to move the ball against this Penn State defense. Last year they moved the ball pretty well. They just didn't score when they needed to, especially into the second half of that game. I don't see anything changing this year. I think West Virginia's offense is going to be just as good, if not better, because I think the passing game is going to be improved. So as good as Penn State defense was last year and is expected to be this year, I think West Virginia's offense can score on anybody in the country this year, quite frankly.
Yeah, we're going to score points, and we're going to score points on Penn State's defense, which is going to say something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, people think this is going to be a low-scoring affair, but I don't know if it's going to be that low-scoring. West Virginia's offense is going to be able to score more points against other teams that they play throughout the year, but I don't know if it's going to be in the teens like a lot of people think. I think it might be in the 20s, maybe even the 30s.
Well, and talk about a confidence builder for your team. If you do come out and you do put up good offensive numbers, whether it's scoring, whether it's total yards, whether it's rushing yards, regardless of the outcome, you can look at your team in the locker room if you're Neil Brown and say, hey, that defensive line we just played and you ran for X amount of yards and scored X amount of points on, you're not going to see a better one this year. So you can do that against anybody this season. So I think it's going to only build confidence for the rest of the year, even if you don't come out on top of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 4 guys easily, and that might be cutting a minimum on this Penn State defense that's going to play in the NFL next year.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. All right. So we've pretty well covered that. We're going to get ready to dive into key to victory and our score predictions after that. Of course, it's gut check time to make our predictions for this game here momentarily. But before we do, I do want to take a second. We'd be amiss if we didn't mention special teams briefly. I do think West Virginia does have an advantage here in this area. You know, one reason being, like I said, new coordinators there for Penn State as well. Justin Lustig takes over as their new special teams coordinator, and West Virginia returns most of their pieces on special teams. You know, same punter, same long snapper, same kicker, same punt returner. They are going to be breaking in a new kick returner. Sounds like it's going to be Hudson Clement starting off back there returning kicks this year. But other than that, you know, Penn State, like I said, new coordinator, and they're going to have a new kicker as well. So I think West Virginia could have a bit of an advantage in the special teams aspect, and maybe that's something that goes to make a difference in the game. Maybe West Virginia makes a play on special teams as well. You know, you never know, but that's definitely a aspect that we got to include here, guys. Any thoughts on special teams before we talk key to victory?
I'm glad you said that. Actually, we've talked about it a lot because he's a home guy for us down here. But Dom Collins has, they may even if they put him back a returner, he's got
I'd
a
love to see
lot
it.
of speed. If any of y'all listening haven't heard that name yet, he's got a lot of speed. Has a lot of potential to be what I believe is a Tavon Austin type, kick returner in that space. And then besides that, don't forget that West Virginia's got really good potential to block field goals. So if it comes down to like a block or a late half or a late game situation, with a field goal on the line, West Virginia has been known to block a couple.
That's right.
And multiple in the same game sometimes. So.
And they've really been talking up Preston Fox as punt returner too. I think that he's going to make a play this year. I don't know if it'll be this game, but at some point he will. Yeah, he's been the talk of Fox. Yeah.
Preston Fox deserves a little bit more mention, I guess, from a lot of people. I guess yeah. My guy's been around the program for a long time, and we've seen him make those plays. I think it was we watched him all 3 of us together watched him in that spring game. You just make some of the most ridiculous catches you've ever seen a guy make.
As a freshman,
we know the potential that he holds. He as a freshman, so we
has held to it. He's made some crazy catches even in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. He might be, a little upset that he's not getting enough mention with all these receivers we brought in. With Huddy coming in, he probably no malice towards any of those other guys, but he's probably like, I'm making a name for myself this year.
That's definitely your role model. That's definitely the dude you point to in your room and you say, that guy right there, do what he does.
He's like the receiver version of Skylar Howard.
Yeah, that's a good point. He just gets it done, man. He's like a quiet assassin. You don't hear a lot from him. He's not flashy, but he's always there. He's always consistent, and he does what he's supposed to do and makes the winning plays when it matters.
Yep, you gotta love it. I like the nickname Pac-Man Fox.
I do too. I love it when they say that on nickname. 3 Guys in Sportsline. That's a good nickname, especially if he starts running back punts for touchdowns this year. Then he's really living up to that moniker.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see that.
They were good in most special teams areas last year. There were a couple areas they needed to improve was kickoff coverage and kick return. And I think they've made a concerted effort to do that. And hopefully we get to see it come to fruition in this matchup against Penn State. So that's kind of our thoughts on the matchups, offense, defense, and a little bit of special teams there thrown in because we can't forget about that. But guys, let's talk about it. Let's talk about our keys to victory, and then we will get into our score predictions here for this one. I'll lead it off first since I've made you guys take the floor first on these few matchup segments. For me, we talked about one of mine. I kind of cheated. I threw a couple in here, a couple keys to victory here. One, of course, win the turnover battle. I think that's going to be big in this football game for sure. We talked about it making a difference, with the crowd, maybe Penn State playing on the road, you can maybe get into their heads a little bit if that crowd's raucous. But I definitely think that, West Virginia last year, that's one way that they were able to win football games just by playing very smart football, low amount of penalties, and trying to win the turnover battle and not put the ball into harm's way. That's something both Garrett Green and Drew Aller did a good job of last season. So, both those guys are going to try and replicate that success. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we can make them make a mistake, whether it's Aller throwing an interception or us, stripping the ball and forcing a turnover. So one of mine is win the turnover battle. And the other one is running the football. I think if we're able to get the run game going, we've got a great chance in this football game. We talked about it a little bit. Penn State did have, the top rushing defense in college football last year, but they were susceptible at times when they faced a good running team that could really get it going. Much like Michigan last year, we referenced that game a little bit. In Michigan's win over Penn State, they only threw 8 passes and ran the ball 46 times, including, 32 runs to end that game consecutively. So
I was going to say they ran 32 times straight.
yeah, 32 times straight, so if you can get that run game going, then, maybe you can get into their heads a little bit, much like Michigan did, and it becomes kind of a mental thing at that point. And plus, I think Penn State's going to have a good pass rush, so we're going to need the rushing game to, get going, if nothing else, maybe to set up some of those play action deep shots we like to take. So my 2 keys to victory are running the football and winning the turnover battle. Steven, what about you? Key to victory in this matchup against Penn State?
I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I really think more than anything to me that's evident, it's how well West Virginia's defensive line can do against their offensive line. You could point to our lack of depth, but like I've said many times, I don't think that's going to be an issue for us with as many guys as we can bring down in other positions from the linebacker and then the spear position. And then I think if you take away their run game, I think that stagnates their passing game, especially like you said, you bring into a rowdy environment in Morgantown for game 1. I really think that could really disrupt the chemistry that they have, and I think if you cancel out their offense getting going, that really it's only going to feed into how well our offense is going to play, and potentially not even make it a close game. I do think it's going to be a close game, but I think West Virginia could potentially, if they win that battle, they could potentially make it, at least maybe a 10-point game.
I like it, and I think that's a great point. It's a great key there for sure. West Virginia did a good job of that last season. They want to try and make Penn State one-dimensional. Hopefully, they can repeat that success. Last year, West Virginia held Singleton to only 70 yards rushing and Katron Allen to only 51 yards rushing. So neither one of their great running backs got 100 yards last year. West Virginia would love to replicate that this year and force Penn State to be one-dimensional, only passing the football, and hope Drew Aller makes some mistakes. So great point there. West Virginia's defensive line will indeed be a key in this football game. Brad, what are you thinking, though, as far as your key to victory to hope that the Mountaineers come out on top in this season opener against a top 10 Penn State club?
Yeah, my key to victory is Garrett Green. I think I'm just going to ride or die with that gentleman. I think he's just going to kind of, whether it's not getting too high or not getting too low, I think it's going to ride with him, keeping everything even keel. If he just goes out there and has fun and plays good, clean football, I think we can win this game.
Indeed. He's going to be a big part of the reason that we do it if we do pull it off, not only in this game, but throughout the season. As you mentioned earlier, Neil Brown's first recruit, now in his senior season, and as we're ready for him to have a special year, we're expecting him to have a special year. And what better way to kick that off by having a stellar performance against a Penn State defense that a lot of people are expecting to be really good and, a top nationally ranked team. The last quarterback that beat Penn State was pretty great in Major Harris. So that'd be pretty good company to be in for Garrett Green if he was able to pull this off. So that'd be great company for Garrett Green to be in, and he will forever, etch his name into Mountaineer lore if he is able to pull that off, and especially if he's one of the guys that leads us to victory in this game. And West Virginia is going to need him if they want to pull off that victory. So great key there, Brad. And with that being said, it's time, guys. We got to get into it. We got to make our score predictions for this game. West Virginia versus Penn State, season opener in Morgantown, stripe the stadium game. At the time we're recording this, Penn State's currently favored by 10 points as far as the spread is concerned. But West Virginia, we feel like has a better chance than that. We think that West Virginia is being underrated a little bit heading into this football game. So, Brad, we'll let you lead this one off first. What's your prediction now? We're getting close to game time. Here to kick off this 2024 season. Can West Virginia get it done against Penn State? What's your score prediction for this matchup?
Yeah, so, man, I'm going to be honest. I do think West Virginia comes out excited, ready to play. I think that they jump up on Penn State early, which I think is something that they absolutely have to do to have a chance to win. I think that, Penn State's going to be working out some kinks, getting things still rolling. And I think that West Virginia goes up in at halftime, but something's just nagging at me that we're just going to get up a little bit too much, 21 to 3, something like that. And then Penn State's just going to kind of get their groove going. And I think that we're going to have a few dumb mistakes, maybe. It only takes a couple of those to happen. Running into your own kick returner or punt returner or something like that might just happen.
I hope not.
Takes a couple bit, but I think that Penn State crawls back into it because they're a sound football team, and I'm gonna have us losing this first one. So I think it's gonna be a fun, close game. And like I said, I think that we even come out ahead of time. But I just think that Penn State's a hell of a football team, and I think when they get it together, if we don't hold it together, I think that they're going to come back and get us. So I had our final score being 27-21.
All right, so Penn State with a strong second half, getting the win.
Still covering though.
In Brad's scenario, though. But yeah, covering the spread at least, closer than the experts predict. So wouldn't be too mad about that. And at least there would be, some fun, bright spots in the beginning if that was the case. Hopefully West Virginia is able to win the football game. But I definitely understand your line of thinking there. This is a very tough matchup. Very tough opponent, and it's a tall task to be able to beat them, a top 10 ranked team here to open the season. So not a bad pick there. Steven, what about you? Are you in agreement with Brad? Do you think West Virginia comes out on the losing side? I know that's how you were feeling in the prediction roundtable, but I'm wondering if, studying this team a little bit more, if you've changed your mind or not on this pick and what your score prediction here is in this matchup against Penn State now.
It's funny that you mentioned that because, after looking at all factors involved, you bring in two all new coordinators on both sides of the ball. You're going to have, two new schemes for Penn State. I'm gaining confidence in what West Virginia can do when you add in everything that we've just talked about. So I did predict us to lose this game in the prediction roundtable, but I'm going to flop that. I think West Virginia comes out and they get a good win. And I'm going to give you my score prediction, and then I'm going to give you a reasoning behind, I guess, my logic. But I'm going to go with 35-28. I think West Virginia wins it by a touchdown.
30 plus. I like it.
Mm-hmm. And I think potentially it could come down to the defense possibly stopping their offense on a potentially game-winning drive at the end of the game. But, I've talked about how successful I think that this team can be and how truly special it could be for the longevity of this football program moving forward. And the teams in the past that have been able to beat Penn State and get past that hump, and this is the last time you're going to get a chance to do that for a long time probably. We haven't really factored that into this.
True.
But, those teams that really beat them back in the day, those teams went on to do special things. That 88 team played for the national championship. So, I'm not saying that this team's going to play for a national championship, but I do think that they might make it to the college football playoff, and they could win the Big 12 conference doing that, and getting there and getting that first round bye. There's a lot of factors that I've pointed to on previous shows on why I have such strong, excitement for this whole squad and everything around it. But if you're going to be that great team, you've got to beat Penn State. And, our original thought process was if you beat them, you get too high up on yourself and then you could falter. But if history's proven anything for WVU, at least when we beat Penn State, that's not the case.
That's true.
I guess that just points to, it just means you're a legitimately good football team. And I believe West Virginia is a legitimately good football team.
I love it. Scoring 30 plus on Penn State, I'd take. And of course, getting the win, I'd be super excited for. And it would be a monumental victory for this state, for this program, for everyone. And like you said, could set up for a very special season. And I think that this team's mature enough that even if they do end up winning this football game, they won't, get too high of it because of it. And I think that they will remain focused for the rest of the season. And it could lead to that special season that you're talking about. But I'm going to have to say that, for me, there was a few factors, when I was looking through it that really kind of made me decide on my pick. And one of those was, something you guys have mentioned throughout this, and we've talked about a little bit, is the new coordinators, specifically on the offensive side, is one that I wanted to look at because Andy Kotelnicki, obviously, he's regarded as one of the best offensive coordinators in college football, and rightfully so. You look last year at Kansas, they averaged 446 yards per game. Before that, he was at Buffalo and really transformed that offense. His final year at Buffalo, they averaged 478 yards per game. But what I wanted to look at was how long did it take his offense to, get going in those places? Did they start off that hot and stay that hot from, his first year at the beginning of his tenure at both those places to his final year? And one thing that I discovered was it seems like it takes, some adjustment to his scheme for, those offenses to really get rolling. Because I went back and looked at his year one at Buffalo. They only averaged 387 yards per game. And then I went back and looked at his first year at Kansas. They only averaged 326 yards per game. Scoring average was down in that first year. The quarterback threw more interceptions in that first year at both those programs. So now we know not only is this his first year at Penn State, but it's also his very first game with this club. So I think there's going to be a bit of adjustment period there. So although Andy Kotelnicki may have, a lot more weapons here at Penn State than he's had at either of those previous stops with, higher caliber players, I still think there's going to be a bit of adjustment period. So I think that could be advantage West Virginia there. But, Brad also talked about the other thing that I think is going to be advantage West Virginia for me in this game that leads me to my score prediction, and that's Garrett Green. Because I think when you look back at last season, you can go watch West Virginia at the end of half scenarios, into game scenarios, 2 minutes to go, 1 minute to go. Garrett Green was very clutch in those situations. And according to PFF, he was actually the best in the nation at 2 minutes or less as far as quarterbacks are concerned, creating scoring drives in those situations. So when I was thinking this through in my head, I think it's going to be a back and forth battle throughout. And I think we get to the fourth quarter. I think it's something like a 21-21 football game. I think Penn State puts together a drive. They go down, they kick a field goal. They go up 24-21, but I think they leave us a minute 30. They leave us 2 minutes. And that's when Garrett Green gets his chance right there to put that drive together. And I think he does just that. He goes down. He scores a touchdown with hardly any time left on the clock. And I've got West Virginia winning this football game 28-24 on a Garrett Green game-winning drive. West Virginia takes down Penn State in Morgantown, opens up the season 1-0 with this monumental victory over the Nittany Lions.
I like it.
Would cry, would shed tears, real tears.
Absolutely, 100%. I would be crying. They'd be falling from my eyes as we're singing Country Roads.
I'll be equally as excited as I will be stressed out for the weeks to come, because then I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, what does this mean for the rest of the season?
This? Oh yeah, is this really happening?
Yeah,
because
Jordan comes
to
back
me, I'm like,
painted blue and gold.
Because I mean, legitimately,
Absolutely.
like we've talked about like the that middle of your schedule and how tough that's going to be for West Virginia potentially. If you beat Penn State, you really set yourself up nice for the the rest of this season. And I don't want to stress that enough, but could set the Big 12 up nicely for because I don't want to downplay that. Even though the winner of the Big 12 conference gets into the college football playoff, these types of games really kind of mean something in terms of like how many people in your conference get into the college football playoff.
Because you could get two in. You could really get two teams in.
You could get two in. I mean, right now, SEC is like, oh yeah, we're getting 4 in. Yeah, we got make it all the SEC playoff. half SEC, half Big Ten at this point. Like they are the cockiest bunch.
The best part about beating Penn State, honestly, would be the sheer fear that I know would be gripping the University of Pittsburgh for thinking about what is walking into Acrisure Stadium.
Yeah, like they are. I don't even think they're too confident they're going to be good. I think they've accepted it. They're like, yeah, we suck.
Yeah, that one could get ugly. Because in that type of rivalry, if we can run it up, we probably will. But I'm just hoping that we, come out on this victorious against Penn State here. Like I said, maybe I'm using my heart more than my head, but it's just one of those things where sometimes, you have a really good feeling, and then the closer and closer you get to the game, that feeling starts to dissipate. You don't feel as good if it's a game that you're worried about. But for whatever reason, that's not happening to me with this Penn State game. And, that happened a little bit last year. The closer we got to the game, I started to worry more and more. But I just have a true belief and a true confidence in this WVU team that if anyone can get it done against Penn State, it's this year's ball club. So I really just do think that they stand a great chance to win this football game.
Yeah, I'm like you, Cruz. I think the closer that we usually get to kickoff, especially opening kickoff for the first game of the season, it always hits me like, okay, no, this is getting a little bit more real. But I'm telling you, there's just too many factors for me not to feel the way that I do. You know what I mean? Like
it's happening the opposite way. The confidence is building instead of that happening and you're starting to get more worried. It's like you're getting more confident the closer we get to the season with this team.
Exactly. I mean, it legitimately, I always say these, but it legitimately feels like 2006.
But see, for me, I feel like where I'm like not picking us to win is because I think that I feel like to beat Penn State, you have to play damn near perfectly. You got to play. They've got to be that dominant team that like I want them to be. Like they've got to be that team that's going to walk in and stomp it from beginning to end. And so it's just like, I don't want to have that expectation of them. So it's like, I would rather expect you to kind of have some mistakes and work some kinks out and know that you could lose a close game against a really good team. And if you prove to me that you can beat a really good team, like you've not shown to me that you can beat a Penn State yet.
True.
And so it's just like,
True.
why would I expect you to beat Penn State when you've not even, I'm going to say maybe Oklahoma back in 2022, 2020, whatever it was, maybe.
Whenever it was we beat them, yeah.
Yeah. No, when we almost beat them. Neil Brown's first time in Norman, I think. And
That
so
was
it's just like,
21.
yeah, so it's just like, it's been a minute since you've shown that you can compete with one of those teams. But, Neil Brown, you get him at home this time. It's here this time. So get her done, brother.
That's right.
Like I said,
That's
it's
right.
the last chance you get.
Yeah, last chance against Penn State for who knows how long, especially with how far these schedules are out now, all the realignment going on. Got to bring it this time. Got to bring it, and I think this team will be ready. We're certainly ready. We know you guys viewing and listening to this episode are definitely ready as well. Be loud, be proud there if you're in Morgantown. Let's make this a super tough environment for the Nittany Lions. And hey, be just as loud if you're watching it on your TV as well, because the team's going to need that support all around. And I think we're all ready for, a special season and hopefully a special start to the season with this game over Penn State. So there we broke down the matchups. We've talked our key to victory. We've talked our score prediction, giving it to you right there. Now we're going to get ready and look at some other games going on around the conference in the Big 12 and make our picks for those before we wrap up here our Season 7, Episode 190, our Penn State preview and predictions episode. But before we do that, just want to say thank you guys for tuning into this, whether you're watching on YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to just take a second, hit that thumbs up button. That really helps us a ton. And subscribe to us here on the Country Roads Webcast on the YouTube side. But if you're on the audio side that you can find on any podcast platform, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, you name it, just be sure maybe leave us a rating there. That really helps us a lot. Leave us a 5-star rating, preferably. But, whatever you think we deserve, leave us a rating. It helps with the show. And, of course, share us around with your other Mountaineer fans you may know, and appreciate WVSportsNow.com for hosting our episodes as well. Having said that, gentlemen, let's get into some around the Big 12 and make some picks for the other games going on around the conference here to start off the 2024 season. Let me pull up the slate here. We do have some Thursday games coming up around the Big 12 here in week 1. So we got New Hampshire at UCF. Obviously, I'm rocking with the Knights in this one. Brad, how you feeling about New Hampshire and UCF?
Yep, give me the kids.
Steven, what about you?
Yeah, give me UCF.
Give them the Golden Knights. Are they still the Golden Knights? But don't call them Central Florida. They don't like that. Even though UCF isn't a college. It's the University of Central Florida. But they don't like it when you say Central Florida. So, UCF.
Why?
I don't know, man.
Don't call us what we are.
Ever since a couple years ago, if you call them Central Florida, they don't like it. So I'm just I'll just stick with UCF. Florida State? I mean, like UCF. That's the only thing that bugs me is like it's an abbreviation. Like, it stands for something. So
I don't understand. It was like when people get mad that you call us the University of West Virginia. Like, that's understandable.
That's different. Yeah.
Yeah, we're the West Virginia University. It's like, don't call us West Virginia. We're WVU.
WVU. But yeah, UCF, not the toughest matchup, so we're all picking the UCF Knights in that one. And then we got Lindenwood, whoever that is, taking on the Kansas Jayhawks. No offense to Lindenwood there.
You never heard of Lindenwood?
The great opponent of Lindenwood in week 1. Obviously,
that lady doesn't know her.
That's good. That's good. But obviously, I'm rocking with Kansas in this one. Playing at home, even though it's not truly their home stadium, they're having to play, all their home games in Kansas City this year as their stadium's being built. But I don't think it'll make a difference for this one. Going with Kansas. Steven, who you going with?
Rock chalk, baby.
Rock chalk. Rock chalk all around, Brad, making it 3 for 3?
Make it a 3 for 3.
Beautiful, beautiful. No wood this time for Lindenwood. And then North Dakota State and Colorado in Boulder, night game on Thursday. This one will be on ESPN. I'm going to go ahead and take this one first, guys, because I'll be straight up with you guys. I took North Dakota State on the money line. Already got that bet in. I'm thinking upset city here. You guys know how I feel about Colorado. Not a fan of them whatsoever. Pretty much the only Big 12 team I'm actively rooting against this year is Colorado. it is what it is. I'm rolling with North Dakota State in this one. What about you, Steven?
I I'm not that high up on it myself, but I can't agree with you on this one, my man. I got to go with Colorado.
How dare you? How dare you ever
How
pick the
dare
Buffaloes on this program?
I'm sorry, man. I'm not a fan of the team per se, but I still do. I like Prime and I like Travis Hunter.
No, I think, chances are they probably will win this game, but I refuse to pick them. I'm going North Dakota State. Bradley, what about you, man?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Jordan. Give me the Bison over the Buffalo.
Hey, my guy, my
Ooh,
guy. I
2 for
like it.
1 on them. All
I
right.
like it. I like it.
Yeah, you know.
And then another tough matchup here, Utah and their grueling schedule they have in 2024. It's so tough that it starts off with Southern Utah at home, 8 p.m. Central Time kick, so 9 p.m. Eastern. This one will be on ESPN Plus. Hate to pick them, but I got to pick Utah to win this one. Not the toughest matchup, so I'll go with the Utes. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, no, I ruffle feathers. I'll go Southern Utah.
Okay, okay.
Opening
Okay.
weekend upset. Not to devalue what we do here, but
Hey, you got to have some fun with these. Got to have some fun with these. Not like we're tracking the Big 12 picks anyway. This is just for shits and gigs, as they like to say. So, yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, that's why I took North Dakota State. Nothing but pure animosity for me on that side. Steven, I know you're a huge Utah fan, so I
Yeah.
was interested to see your pick on this one.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm not really too high up on Utah, but and I hate to pick them, so I'm not going to. Give me Southern Utah. What are they? Is that an
Yeah,
Eagle? Give me
that
the
looks like
Eagles. Give
I
me
guess.
the Eagles, baby.
we got
Give me
we
the
got two
upset
picks
game
for
one.
Southern
Southern
Utah.
Utah, they got to rise up, man. Nobody's
Mhm.
respecting the southern part of that state, so you got to
Big
think in that
12 is
locker
a
room.
dominant
They're
conference, but
We got we're 4 picks into our Big 12 picks on the year, and we got 2 North Dakota States and 2 Southern Utahs. I love it. I love it, guys. Off to a
hey,
fun start
don't
around the
disrespect
Big
Southern
12.
Utah now.
I'll circle back
The
to
Eagles
Lynn.
got some might.
Don't doubt me.
Yeah, we'll go back and we'll pull out some wood on this one. We'll do it. All right, guys. So then we do have one Friday game before we get into the Saturday slate where the majority of the games are. This one, a bit more interesting. TCU and Stanford, Big 12 versus ACC. Still crazy to think about Stanford being the ACC, but they are. And TCU has to travel out to the West Coast to play this one, so it won't kick off till 10:30 Eastern time on Friday night, August 30th. There will be on ESPN, though. TCU and Stanford. How you feeling about this one, Brad?
I mean, joking aside with the last two, it is what it is. I mean, not actually with North Dakota State. I think that they really got a chance to beat Buffaloes.
I
I,
would
I really
too.
do think that. I think that that's a hell of a team, and I think that Colorado's got a chance to fall off the knife's edge at any moment. It just takes one blown kneecap to ruin everything that they've got going on. So, but when it comes to TCU and Stanford, I think that this is going to be a much better game. I think that Stanford's going to have a little bit more to prove, and I think they're going to have a little bit more motivation walking into the season to show that they're not some pastime. So I'm actually going to go with Stanford on this one.
Yeah, not a bad pick. I think this one's a toss up, really. I'm gonna side with the Big 12 on this one since we've been, going against them on the Thursday night games. I'm gonna go with TCU. But going out there to California playing Stanford, not an easy task there, especially early in the season having to kick off 9:30 Central Time, 10:30 Eastern Time. Be interesting to see how it pans out. But I'll ride with the Horny Frogs on this one. Steven, what about you?
To be honest with you, I don't really know. I know a little bit about TCU just because they're in the Big 12, and you learn a little bit about them. I don't really know much about Stanford other than that they're leaving, what was the Pac 12 to come to the ACC. Late kickoff, but I don't know. I'm just going to go with the toss up, but I guess I'll just side with the Big 12 like you did,
Yeah.
TCU.
That's kind of my same line of thinking. I don't know much about this Stanford club. I know they haven't been as good as they once were, a few years ago. And, TCU's looking to bounce back, so they want to start off in the right way. So we'll side with the Big 12. Let's go on now to the Saturday slate. Of course, West Virginia, Penn State, the premier game for us. Definitely. It's going to be, of course, 12 o'clock Eastern, big noon Fox kickoff game. Super excited for that one. You heard our picks for that one, and we're going through the matchups there. How about Oklahoma State, though, playing at home against another one of the Dakotas? This time they're playing South Dakota State in Stillwater. It'll be a 2 o'clock Eastern kick on ESPN+. I'm riding with the Cowboys on this one. I think they'll get I believe it's the Jackrabbits there at South Dakota State, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys over the Jackrabbits. Steven, what about you?
I'm going with Oklahoma State. You don't remember the whole college game day with Pat McAfee going up there for Adam Vinatieri? That's where Adam Vinatieri would play at
Oh
school.
yeah, that's right. That's right. I knew what I was wondering. I was like, why do I know their mascot? I couldn't remember why. But that's probably it. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, you're not getting Oklahoma State in Stillwater all day, every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the toughest places to play in the whole conference for sure. And then we got another matchup against an FCS squad here. Cincinnati welcomes Towson into Cincinnati. 2:30 kick on ESPN+. Riding with the Bearcats in this one. Brad, who you got?
Yeah, definitely Cincinnati.
Steven?
Yep, got to go with the Bearcats on this one. Although Towson was a little scrappy when they came and played us.
They were. The North Dakota and South Dakota teams getting a lot of Big 12 matchups here in week one as
They are.
North Dakota themselves heads into Ames, Iowa to take on Iowa State. 3:30 Eastern kick on FS1. I think that, got to go with Anthony Beck's son in this one. Got to go with Rocco Beck and Iowa State to start the season off 1-0. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, if your name's Dakota, man, avoid Big 12 fans first week of football, apparently, because we're fighting everybody in the name Dakota. But yeah, I'm gonna go Iowa State all day. I think that just that step difference. This team's obviously just not as good as Southern Utah, so definitely go Iowa State on this one.
Yeah, for sure. Steven, anything different?
No, honestly, it was exactly the same. I want to get like a little mind reading test on you at some point, because that's the first thing I thought about when I seen this matchup was give me Rocco Beck and the Cyclones, and it's almost verbatim what you said. So
Yeah, well, I'm using my telepathy on you, and I've been stealing your thoughts. I've been stealing your thoughts since the season prediction roundtable. Actually, if you haven't noticed, like I'm in your head, dude. I'm like Professor X.
Hey, man, I hope you like what's going on up there, because there's a lot of
I don't
envisionment
know,
of the future of WVU football.
You got a dirty mind, dude. I don't know.
Hey, listen, man, $5 is $5. Okay.
No, I'm kidding. But we have been thinking a lot alike lately, though. That is for sure. All right, and then we got another one here. Tarleton taking on Baylor in Waco. Night game, ESPN Plus, 7 o'clock Eastern. I think, Baylor, Dave Aranda has a hot seat. He can't afford to lose to Tarleton, so got to ride with Baylor here on this one. Steven, who you got?
Yeah, give me the Bears.
Yeah, easy picks this week. Really, not too many that we've had to think too much about. A lot of FCS matchups, so that's nice here.
The Big 12 got
the hardest one to think about was our game.
Yeah, Penn State, West Virginia is definitely the premier game of the week for sure. Brad, you taking Baylor?
For sure.
Got it. All right, then we get UT Martin at Kansas State, 7 o'clock Eastern kick as well on ESPN Plus. Got to ride with the Wildcats. Obviously, that's one of my picks to play in the Big 12 championship game. You guys heard that when you checked out our last episode, the season prediction roundtable. So can't pick against the Wildcats here in this one. Brad, who you rolling with?
K-State.
K-State. Steven, you got K-State?
K-State as well. Yep.
K-State all around on that one. Now, here's one that's a little bit interesting. UNLV and Houston. Playing at Houston, though. 7 o'clock kick on FS1. Houston bringing in the new coach and Willie Fritz, who I think is a good coach. It just depends on how long it's going to take him to get that thing turned around, because we know firsthand following up a Dana Holgorsen tenure can be a bit of a rebuild. It's not like he leaves the cupboard fully stocked. It's not like recruiting is his strong suit. So who knows how long it'll take Houston to get things rolling there. They do have some pieces coming back. But playing on UNLV, it's an interesting matchup, that go-go offense at UNLV. But it's at Houston. I'm gonna roll the dice. I'm gonna give one to UNLV. I gotta have another crazy pick here. So let me give me UNLV. They're running Rebels in this one. Brad, who you got?
I'm going to go Houston. I think the Cougars have got this. I think Fritz is going to be have his team ready to go for that first weekend, and it's at home. I'll give it to him.
All right, I like it. So at least we got a couple different picks so far in this one. Steven, which side are you landing on?
Yeah, I was going back and forth there for a second, because you like you said, Dana leaves that cupboard bare, but
Yeah.
playing at home, they've probably excuse me, they probably got themselves amped up to prove themselves with this new coach and a new scheme. With them at home, give me Houston.
All right. So 2 Houstons and 1 UNLV on that one. At least a little bit of parity there. Abilene Christian and Texas Tech. Another night game. A lot of night games here in week 1 as well.
Is it?
7:30 kick on ESPN Plus also. I'm going to roll with the Red Raiders, obviously, in this one. I think they'll handle Abilene Christian pretty easily. Steven, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to take Texas Tech as well.
Brad?
Texas Tech.
That's what I figured. I figured on that one. So I'll rolling with the Big 12 in that one. Southern Illinois and BYU night game in Provo, 8 o'clock Eastern kick, ESPN Plus. I'm rolling with BYU. Maybe a lot of people are kind of underestimating them this year. I think that they got a chance to make a bowl game. Maybe we'll see what happens as the season progresses, but I don't think they'll have any problems with Southern Illinois. Bradley, who you got?
Yeah, people from Southern Illinois shouldn't be in Utah. Give me BYU.
Steven, who you got?
Yeah, I'm rolling with the Mormons, baby.
Hey, I knew you would. You like the BYU fans.
Cougars. Hey, I'm becoming a big BYU fan.
Hey, they're good people. They're good people.
They are. They are good people. Good
So
school,
we're
good
all
program. A lot better than that red team they play.
yes, yeah. We know Stephen favors BYU over Utah in the Holy War.
I'm thinking
Sure.
I'm thinking about starting a BYU podcast called
Hey,
the
there you go.
Stormin' Mormons, and it's called the Stormin' Mormon Webcast, and it's
The
gonna have all
Stormy
the
Mormon
same
webcast.
3 guys, but it's a secondary show where we just support the BYU Cougars
Hey man,
and
I'll come on
we
there
hate
with
on
you.
Utah.
I'll talk some BYU with you. Then another newcomer here coming to the league, one of the 4 new squads joining this year, coming over from the Pac-12, Arizona with the late kick, another 10:30 Eastern kick. This one on ESPN though. On Saturday night, they welcome New Mexico into Tucson. I'm high on Arizona, guys. I like Arizona. I like Fafita. I like T Mac at receiver. I think they'll handle New Mexico State. I mean, New Mexico, not New Mexico State. That's 2 different teams. But just straight New Mexico, Arizona's going to handle them. But if it was New Mexico State, I'd still pick Arizona. So it doesn't really matter. Probably not. Arizona's getting the win. Bradley, who you got?
Yeah, I think Arizona's going to, even though they're going through a coaching change, I think they still got enough talent to go and whip up on New Mexico at home. So I'm going to go Arizona by a bit.
Steven, what about you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with the Wildcats as well, even though I'm not as high up on them as you are this year. I think they win this game.
All right, so we're all rolling with the Big 12. And then the last one, maybe a little bit more interesting than some of the others, just because Arizona State, dealing with a lot, trying to, get things turned around now with their new coaching staff. That Herm Edwards scandal kind of really set them back. And they'll welcome Wyoming in for a 10:30 Eastern kick on Fox Sports 1 in Tempe, Arizona. Interesting matchup here. Part of me wants to pick Wyoming, but, I'm going to give Arizona State the benefit of the doubt, at least give them this win because I don't know how many games they'll win this year. I think they'll struggle to make a bowl, so hopefully they're able to at least get this win over Wyoming. So give me Arizona State over Wyoming in this one. Steven, what about you?
No, this is a pretty interesting matchup. Honestly, just for the sake of going with a more quirky pick, I'll go with Wyoming.
All right,
What are
interesting.
they,
Hey, I don't
Cowboys?
blame you. Yeah,
Go
Wyoming. I think
Cowboys.
they're the Cowboys. They've been pretty good in recent seasons. So
Yep.
not a bad pick. I don't think there. Brad, how are you feeling about this one though? Our final pick in our around the Big 12 segment here to open up week 1.
No, yeah, I'm just picking Wyoming because I'm mad that Arizona State made me pick this when it's a 9:30 Central Time game.
Yeah, I know. It's like why are
Both
y'all
Arizona
playing?
games.
Why are y'all playing? Like I don't even know if I'll be able to stay up late
In
enough to watch
spite of
this,
Arizona
especially
State,
Mark my
because
words.
you are on this
Y'all
list and forcing me to talk about this right now, Arizona State.
mark my words. That game that we play against Arizona on October 26th is going to be a night game, and it's going to be
it's gonna
scheduled
be
for
like a 10:30
9:30 at night.
Eastern, just like these. Like it'll be 10:30
Yeah.
Eastern, and I'll be struggling to keep my eyes open to watch it. I don't even know if I'll be able to watch these the Arizona and Arizona State playing week 1, especially after traveling back from Morgantown earlier in the day. I'll probably be zonked out and have to find out who won in the morning. But of course, we'll talk about it on our Penn State review and reaction episode when we go back through these scores and see who won in our Around the Big 12 segment on the review and reaction podcast. And hopefully we're talking about maybe a West Virginia win over Penn State there. It's definitely a possibility of happening, something that we're hoping to see happen there. But there it is, our game picks for our Around the Big 12 segment here in episode 190, our Penn State preview and prediction show. Been a fun one, guys. We've talked matchups, we've talked keys to victory, we've gave our predictions, and of course, some Big 12 picks. But as far as West Virginia's open to the season here in 2024, this matchup with Penn State or anything else, what do you guys have here? Final thoughts before we get ready to close up shop here on another episode of the CRW podcast. Got anything, Steven?
No, man. I'm really excited to get this season underway, man. I really get excited for every season, but like I've touched on a lot, I'm particularly excited about this one. I think it has a large potential to be very special for a lot of reasons. So,
yeah,
just ready to get up there. I went up there this past Saturday just to ride around and scope things out, and I was like, man, only 2 weeks left. So
that's right. We're about there, guys. We've almost made it. We're ready to get this season started. Highly anticipated. We've been talking about it. Seems like forever. It's finally here. And the only bad thing is, seems like we talk about it forever, wait on it to get here, and then it's going to go by far too fast. But we're going to try and soak it in as it comes through. Enjoy each moment of it because we feel like it can be a special 2024 for sure. Brad, any final thoughts before we get ready to wrap this one up?
Yeah, just echoing that word special, man. This game's got a chance to be something that we'll either remember for the rest of our lives or we'll try to forget for the rest of our lives. And that's just, that's the exciting part about being a fan is that, this is where we're at, this is where we be. And, except we're going to cherish every second of it. And like I said, you go in there and you win this game and you do something that not many Mountaineer teams can say they've done. And that already makes you one of very few.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we're looking to see happen is see this West Virginia team, forever etch their name into Mountaineer history, into Mountaineer lore, and forever be in the minds of Mountaineer Nation. Everyone could talk about the 2024 season and could talk about the 2024 season opener against Penn State if this goes our way. But either way, we're expecting the Mountaineers to come on, put on a strong performance, and get this season off to a good start. The season that we all feel like can be the one word we've all echoed time and time again, special. And we've had such a special, fun time putting together this episode, and hopefully you guys have had a fun time listening to it or watching it, whether you tuned in on YouTube or listened on the podcast platform. We appreciate you doing either way you choose to do so. Look out for our Penn State Review and Reactions podcast coming out either Sunday or Monday. Most likely we'll be out Monday following the game. That'll kind of be our schedule throughout the season as we will try and release our review podcasts on Monday, and then our preview podcast will be releasing on Wednesdays, most likely throughout the season. If you want to be on the lookout for those moving forward as we continue to preview and review each game of this 2024 WVU football season. And a last reminder, just want to remind you guys to head over to magicmind.com/country LT and get the Magic Mind mental performance shot. Really will help boost you a lot, give you less anxiety, better mental clarity, better focus, all that good stuff. And I promise you'll prefer it to any other energy drink or product you've had in the past. And you can do it with a discount, 48% off your first subscription or 20% off a one-time purchase. Just use our special code at checkout, CountryLT20. Having said that, guys, appreciate y'all tuning into this episode. For my co-hosts Brad and Steven, we're ready to get this Mountaineer football season underway just like you guys are, and we'll be back to talk about it with you guys throughout the 2024 season. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those